Hi, and welcome to Dark Window. I'm your host, Jim Mann. Here on this program, I will be talking with many of the leading investigators, researchers, and authors on the topics of UFOs, UAPs, alien abductions, extraterrestrials, and a host of many other fascinating and related topics. So please join me and my guest for the next hour as we reach out. This is Dark Window on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. And hello, everyone. I think tonight we have a very good show. I got a special guest, Linda Zimmermann. Now, Linda Zimmermann is a research scientist turned award-winning author of over 30 books on science, history, the paranormal, and fiction. She has lectured across the country and has appeared on numerous TV and radio shows. Linda began her paranormal research in the 1990s, and her ghost books include America's Historic Haunts and 13 volumes of Ghost Investigators series of books highlighting her best cases. Linda has appeared on television shows such as Dead Files, Creepy Canada, America's Most Haunted, several episodes of Paranormal Survivor, and 2 seasons of Hotel Paranormal. She has also appeared on multiple seasons of Strange Evidence and NASA's Unexplained Files. Linda started in the documentary, or I should say, Linda starred in the documentary In the Night Sky, I Recall a UFO, which was based on her research into sightings in the Hudson Valley of New York. The film won the 2013 People's Choice Award at the EBE Film Festival at the International UFO Congress in Arizona. She has also appeared on several UFO shows, including a current 5-part series, UFOs Investigating the Unknown. Her UFO books include Hudson Valley UFOs, The Best Evidence, and what we're going to talk about tonight, Animal Reactions to UFOs. Linda is the co-host of the podcast UFO Headquarters and the true crime podcast Murder in the Hudson Valley, as well as the writer and host of the spoof podcast Science Fiction Theater. And welcome, Linda. How are you doing tonight?
Very well. Thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Well, it's been a while since you've been out here to Arizona, but it's good to see you on my show. Now, we're going to get started off here. We've got some pretty interesting questions to ask you, Linda. And I guess the first question would be, what drew your attention to the animal reactions to all these unusual events? What got you involved in that?
Well, while I was doing research into the Hudson Valley, I interviewed hundreds of people, and so many people would start their story off with, my dog was just going ballistic. And so I went outside to see what was going on, and there was a triangle or a disc or some unidentified craft in the sky. Or a farmer would say, all the livestock were going nuts. And so I went outside and saw this. And one time during a lecture, I kind of joked. I said, well, if it wasn't for the animals, we'd miss half of these cases. And I stopped and I'm like, well, why? What's that all about? So that's what drew me to find out, what's the science behind this? How prevalent is it? Is it just dogs and cats and horses? Is it everything? So since we're talking about animals, it was a rabbit hole I jumped in with both feet.
Yeah. Well, it's, I remember as a MUFON investigator, UFO investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, one of the questions that we had on our questionnaire when we talked with witnesses who had seen a UFO and they turned in a report, one of the things we would ask them is, did you have a dog, and did the dog react to this? Or did you have a cat, or did you have a frog or a parakeet, whatever? But I thought it was interesting that even MUFON years ago recognized that animals have a reaction to these events. And so here you are writing an entire book about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting. And that book is published. No, it's not published yet.
Oh, yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Animal reactions to
And
UFOs.
do we
I
have
have the
do we have a
cover.
picture of that book, Linda?
Yes, there it is on the left.
Okay, Animal Reactions to UFOs, Linda Zimmermann. And where can we get this book?
Amazon.
Okay.
That's the best way.
Okay, well, that's going to be basically the tenor of our conversation here for the next 45 minutes. Since we're talking about what sort of reactions do they have, and have you noticed a pattern as to what is what's the biggest and what's the most common reaction?
Yeah, that's easy. About 90% is fear, and we're talking hysterical fear, like big, strong German Shepherd guard dogs who will, throw themselves at an assailant to protect you.
Wow.
Dog, right? They'll do anything.
Mhm.
Are suddenly whimpering, trying to dig themselves a hole to hide, hiding under the bed, just complete hysteria, panic, really. And we see this in animals, from insects to elephants. So I think that's just about the whole gamut. There are cases where everything goes silent. Animals freeze, crickets stop chirping, birds stop singing, and that's very eerie. I have a few cases of that. And there's a tiny, tiny percentage where animals seem to be drawn to the craft or whatever the event is going on. But that's deceptive because there's a case in Florida where it was a rectangular craft, and both the woman and her dogs and a cat seemed to be magnetically or just, I have to get closer to this thing. Unfortunately, a day or two later, they exhibited signs of radiation sickness. So,
really?
Yes. So, which brings up, was that just collateral damage, an inadvertent thing, or was there something more sinister involved in that? But fear, absolutely the number one reaction.
So I have noticed, of course, animals react to everything. Storms,
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't have a dog that goes kind of nuts when there's a storm approaching? You can always tell.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're noticing that this happens during UFO events. So that's an interesting point. And now, with all of your studies, is it just household pets like dogs and cats and the parakeet or whatever? Or is it just all across the board for
It
the
is.
UFO events?
Yes, it's all across the board, and the Hudson Valley area has a lot of farms, and I've interviewed so many people that everything from their chickens to cows, horses, goats, sheep, have these reactions. But I think the mother of all animal reaction cases is actually from the Phoenix Zoo in 1993. There was a bright oval craft, first noticed over the lion and tiger area, and the animals were acting in alarm, in distress. And two of the guards saw this craft, and one of them was in his truck. And as the craft got closer to him, the engine and the headlights shut off. So obviously there was some sort of electromagnetic interference. But every animal in the zoo, they said, exhibited signs of alarm, was making sounds of alarm. And it wasn't just a matter of they saw a bright light, because how many animals are inside, are in enclosures, and right at night, they wouldn't have even seen it. So it had to be something else: sound, magnetic fields, vibration. These might be things that happened. The craft finally moved away towards the stadium, and apparently jets from Luke Air Force Base were in pursuit, but the thing took off and was long gone. But how many different species from around the world are in a zoo? And
That's interesting.
right, so they were worried that whatever this was had injured the animals in some way. So the veterinarian was called, and he came in, and they examined it. All the animals seemed okay, but I mean, think of the diversity: the birds, the reptiles, the big cats, exotic animals from around the world. And to me, this is the prime case to say this is a universal phenomena.
Now, Linda, I didn't live here. Well, I wasn't here in Arizona when the Phoenix Lights happened in 97, March of 97. Moved here in 97, but it was a month later, so I just missed it by a month.
Just missed it. Oh.
But as 15 years serving as a director of the MUFON organization here in Arizona, of course, I was very involved with witnesses and people that were here during the Phoenix Lights. Got to know Lynn Kitai very well, who she's the Phoenix Lights lady.
Right.
But you know what? This is the first time I've heard of the Phoenix Zoo and those animals having a problem. I never heard that. So this is new to me, even after all these years being so intimately involved in the Phoenix Lights research and the aftermath thereof. I've never heard of this, that the zoo had a problem that night with the animals.
Yeah, that was 1993. And I don't know if too much available information online, but there probably is. But yeah, I wrote about it in the book because, it answers so many questions. Is it just your hyperactive little poodle that reacts? No, it's animals from around the world.
I wonder if something goes on every time, because, this is sort of a hot spot. The whole Phoenix area has been a hot spot for years for UFO activity and just high strangeness. I have never heard of that, and I'm just wondering if there's more cases. I need to check into that myself.
Yeah, if you're interested, I don't know if you've heard of the San Carlos Reservoir.
I have, yes.
Arizona, the February 75 case. I came across this because I think vibration is a part of it. Animals are extremely sensitive to vibration, particularly fish and birds. Wading birds, they have these special Herbst corpuscles, they're called, in their legs, highly sensitive. So if a fish is swimming by, that little vibration, they know there's something under there. And fish, if you've noticed those lateral lines that go down their sides, those are vibration receptors, essentially.
Are they really? Okay. I wasn't aware of that.
So these guys are camping on the bank of the reservoir.
San Carlos Reservoir.
San Carlos Reservoir. Okay. One of them is sleeping on top of the camper. The other two are inside, and he's awakened by this bright light, and it's moving closer over the reservoir, and it's a craft, one of the most unique I've ever heard. He described it as 50 feet long and like a bad stockade fencing. Yeah, I've never heard of another case looking like fencing posts stuck together. Very unusual. They had been fishing, so their boats pulled out of the water, and the poles are in. The poles start rattling in the boat, tapping against the side of the boat because the poles and fish for hundreds of feet around start jumping out of the water. So some sort of vibration was happening that disturbed the fish, and also, enough to rattle those fishing poles.
Do you suppose this is let's say that we know that certain frequencies affect animals, like the dog whistle. Humans don't hear it, but dogs and I guess maybe cats do too. So maybe there is some sort of vibrational frequency being given off on some of the UFOs that does actually agitate, scare animals. That's a good point.
For sure, sound is a big component because dogs' hearing in the high range is 2 times higher. Cats is 3 times higher. Most animals like horses, dogs, cats, cows all have better high-end hearing. So at first I thought, when I came upon this early in my research, I was like, well, that's the end of my research. It's high frequency sound. That's it. Case closed. Till I found out birds have really bad high frequency, like we're at 20,000 hertz.
20,000 hertz, yeah.
Their high end chickens is like 2, 3, 4. So the high frequency does not apply to them. So it has to be something else. And that's what led me to magnetic fields, because we've all dealt with electromagnetic interference cases.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in just a minute. It's a couple other questions. I know by the way, folks, I have a whole list of questions that I'm going to ask Linda. You got to do your homework before you do these programs.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes. The host who's like, what do you do?
What do you do? But that's interesting. I wonder if there's somewhere there's scientific data on this. Other than, this is something new for me after all these years. I always kind of knew that pets like dogs reacted. I remember on a couple of cases as an investigator for MUFON, when I remember specifically a lady had called me on the phone. I was in the middle of my work day at work, and she called me and she wanted to know if I was the UFO guy. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess I am. And she says, good, because you're the phone number I got. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, I was the state section director for Maricopa County at that time for the Mutual UFO Network. And she was an optometrist. She was an eye doctor. Did I say that right? Optometrist, yes. She was an eye doctor, and she was telling me that she was standing out on her back patio, and there was this large triangular craft just above the hill behind her house. And you could actually hear the vibration, the humming noise in the cell phone. And her dog was having such a problem. Her dog was just barking and running back and forth. And she could only talk to me for a few minutes to tell me what was going on, because her dog was just having such a fit. And I think she mentioned that even the cat in the house was really going nuts. And so, yes, I will. And then another time, there was an elderly couple that called me from Sun City, Arizona. And this was at, I don't know, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. Got a phone call. And they were out walking their dog. And there were 2 jets that had got scrambled up out of Luke Air Force Base that night. And they were chasing some bright light in the sky. And now they were telling me that their dog was no stranger to the jets coming up out of the Air Force Base. But that wasn't the problem. They said they were talking to me real time on the phone, just like the lady, just like the eye doctor lady. The jets were following this white light around the sky, and the dog was abnormally upset, not just because of the jets, Patricia and I, where we live here in Arizona, we live in a little town called Wickenburg, and we're right over the fly zone for the military jets that come up and do their training. There's a military operational area, so we hear the jets all the time. And most of the dogs in the neighborhood, they don't bark, but something weird goes on and the dogs will bark. So I guess I should move on to the next question because this is kind of a good question.
But just to mention that those are classic examples, and had dogs most of my life, and we live near an airport. They could care less when a commercial jet or a plane went over. They know what's familiar, which makes them even more valuable as witnesses because they know when it's not something normal. So, yeah, those are good cases.
It's funny that anybody that owns a dog knows this, that when there's a strange car that parks outside of your house, dogs will recognize the different pitch, the different noise of a strange engine they haven't heard.
Right.
I've always found that fascinating. So I'm not surprised at this. But again, this is new stuff for me. Now, here's a question I want to ask you. Is it just folklore that animals can sense impending earthquakes, or is there some scientific evidence to all this?
Well, science for many years is saying, oh, that's only anecdotal evidence. Like that's a bad thing. That's how science starts. You hear people say, I observed this, and then you try to prove it. But they were brushing that off for many years, even though going back 2,000 years to the Greeks, to ancient China, they all recognized animals knew. So finally, in recent years, I read a great article. The Max Planck Institute has been tagging animals to watch their movements, and they have found they have much more extreme movements right before an earthquake. In fact, there was one study where all the animals left the area, and they're tracking them. Like, why did they just all leave this area? Then a earthquake struck. So science is finally catching up with what so many people already knew, that yes, they absolutely know something is up. And again, I think that probably goes back to magnetic fields.
Yeah, this magnetic field stuff is very interesting. Speaking of animals, animals have 5 senses just like us. So why are we so different? I mean, what's different about our 5 senses and their 5 senses?
Well, they have more than 5 senses in the sense that, as I said, their feeling, the touch, they're much more sensitive to vibration. Birds are extremely sensitive to barometric pressure. They can detect a pressure difference in just as little as 15 feet.
Seriously.
So yeah, it's remarkable. As I said, the hearing, for the most part, they can hear better. Not birds, but animals hear much better, higher frequencies. And then they have that ability called magnetoreception, where birds, if we could put up that one image of the little gray curves with the bird in the center. Yes, that's the one. Birds, and particularly homing pigeons, everybody, what is it that a homing pigeon senses that they can find their way? And this is from the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. I hope I'm got that correct.
Yes,
and
correct.
I spoke with them, and this is an image they produced, that birds actually see the curvature of the magnetic fields in the sky. So if they want to go, for example, towards the west, They look for that curve, the curve to the left there. That's what they'll physically see. And a lot of animals have this. Dogs, this is something everyone can do who's a dog owner, when they go to the bathroom, they want to face north. And this is not if you have them on a leash and you're forcing them to go somewhere. If they're out in a field, out in a yard, they will spin and turn north before they'll do their business. I mean,
Really?
Yes, you can check this out.
I've never paid any attention to that.
Yeah, everybody pay attention now. Cows and horses, a lot of them like to stand in a particular direction. And if you have the picture of the fox, if you can bring that up, foxes are really finely attuned. If you've ever seen, a National Geographic show where Animal Planet, where they'll leap up and dive into the snow to catch their prey, if they are aiming just slightly east of north, a few degrees, they are able to catch their prey like 80% of the time, which is pretty good.
Wow, that's something I didn't know. Okay.
Other directions, that falls to like half that. So
Seriously.
it's a survival skill they have developed with the magnetic field, which, hearing the prey and using the magnetic field, they triangulate. And so the ones with the best magnetoreception eat the most.
Got it. Yeah.
Which is remarkable. But back to the birds seeing, how they do that is there's a protein in the eye called cryptochrome. And there's also particles in the brain, magnetized iron, magnetite particles in their brain. And between these two, they are able to see magnetic fields. And they're finding
they actually can see this flow of
yes. The sky to them is like a road map because of the Earth's magnetic field. They fly that like it's a road sign.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You were saying something, but sometimes we see whole large flocks of birds, and they'll be going this direction, and the entire flock will change directions all at the same time, as though they're avoiding something.
And they probably could be. There's a site in. I'm very interested in ancient Native American mound sites, and you might be familiar in Ohio with the Great Serpent Mound.
Absolutely. Yes.
And the Serpent Mound was built kind of on the edge of an ancient meteor crater, and the magnetic fields are a little strange there. And in the past, there have been observations of birds flying towards this area, and like they're disoriented, they'll just keep circling. It's like they're lost. The magnetic fields there are so off, they kind of get stuck in, like a cul-de-sac. They just keep driving around until someone figures out, hey, we have to get away from here. So,
Linda, we've seen pictures where entire flocks of birds just come out of the sky and come down and hit the ground for no apparent reason. This might have something to do with that.
It certainly could.
I mean, sometimes we call that a paranormal event, but maybe there's nothing paranormal about it at all.
It could be magnetic fields, some sort of radiation, microwaves.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not a coincidence that they all suddenly decided to drop out. Something serious happened to them.
So they possess these other senses.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I did. Now I grew up on a farm in Illinois, and when I was a little boy, we had about 60 or 70 head of Black Angus cattle.
Mm-hmm.
And they would all, when a storm was moving in, their tails would stick up a little bit, or
oh, really?
They'd face a certain direction, or they would all go huddle over in one area of the cattle yard.
Mm-hmm.
we knew there was a storm coming or something. You could always, any good cattle person, um, can look at their cattle and tell that there's foul weather coming in. There's a barometric changes, and
Aha. Okay.
yeah. Now I remember watching an episode of the Skinwalker Ranch when all the cattle out there in the field um, went over to one corner of their pasture, and they didn't just mosey over there; they ran over there. And lo and behold, later on, they noticed that there was an object in the sky just above the tree line. That was kind of a very interesting episode, but that was another example of, the way animals react to the UFO phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very interesting. Yeah. Let's talk a minute about this magnetoreception.
Yes.
And why do you think this might be one of the most important senses when it comes to these reactions? Or maybe we've already discussed this.
Well, again, because I surmise that due to car stalling and radios going bad, we know there's electromagnetic interference during certain UFO encounters. Exactly. So if an animal depends, the fabric of its existence is a magnetic field that it lives by every day. It's how it navigates and how it knows, when it wants to go to the bathroom or how it feels comfortable. I mean, there's obviously comfort zones for animals within these magnetic fields. And suddenly a foreign, unknown object is turning that magnetic field into chaos. They're probably disoriented, scared. I equate it to a person being on a roller coaster that, flips them upside down and sideways, and you just feel all disoriented. I think that's a big part of it. And so I looked into people having magnetoreception, and the mainstream science is no. Well, turns out humans have the cryptochrome proteins in their eyes, and they have magnetite in their brains. We have the equipment to do it. And some people have really uncanny abilities to know, what directions there are.
I've known people like that, yes.
Yes. And there is indigenous tribes around the world who had the whole groups had abilities. There's still a group in Australia, the Cook, Thayor. They don't have words for left and right. Everything is east, west, north, south. So if I wanted to sit down on the couch next to you, I'd say, could you move to the west? I want to sit down. Or you have a spider on your northeast shoulder. And that's the way they communicate. And researchers have said it's like they have compasses in their brains, which is exactly what it is. We all have it. And finally, there's some scientific studies being conducted at universities. Just how sensitive are humans to magnetic fields? And how many cases have you dealt with where someone said, I just felt that a UFO was coming? Right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I just felt something different. Though, pay attention to those feelings when you. I remember as a little kid, we were going somewhere. We're like, oh, which way do we turn? I'd say, well, that feels like north, and that was just normal to me. And,
no, you're absolutely right, Linda. Right? I have experienced that many times.
There you go. So we have it too. So I think that's why some people are extra sensitive, and I'm not ruling out a sixth sense, but I think the magnetic sense alerts people to both paranormal and UFO events.
Yeah. I remember when I first moved here into Arizona, this area from the Midwest, the Midwest being as flat, as can be. You can see from horizon to horizon.
Right.
Moved out here to Arizona where the land has real contour. there was mountains, and I was enthralled with the mountains. And so shortly after I moved here, I got myself in shape and started hiking. And we would hike out into the Superstition Mountains, into some of the other surrounding mountains. And we would get down in between, one large mountain over another in valleys and whatnot. And I remember at times when the sun was right straight overhead, high in the sky. So you really couldn't tell which was east, west, north, south by just looking at the sun.
Mm-hmm.
You would have to wait for later in the day when the sun started setting. Then you say, okay, that's west. But I can remember times, Linda, where being on a trail and looking up and the sun's high in the sky, thinking, now we got to stay north. And it was just like, it's got to be that way. And you know what? I was right.
There you go.
I always kind of was proud of myself, I won't get lost, But there is science behind this.
There is, absolutely.
And this is interesting. We always wonder why certain people are really good trackers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really good. They're good out in the wilderness. They don't get lost. They know which way is south and which way is north.
Yes. And it's not magic. It is
this
science.
Magnetoreception
yes.
can also occur in human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And it can also get all spun around and goofed up too.
Yes, it can.
Right? Well, I'll tell you, when there's been a few times in my life where I have gone down a road out here in the Southwest, and big open spaces and a lot of contour and stuff, and just get absolutely turned around as to which direction. All I know is up. I don't know north,
which
south,
doesn't
east.
Help when you're in a car.
That's exactly right. Well, this is interesting. And then throw a unexplained phenomena in there. Okay, so very interesting. I got another question here. How can studying animal reactions help the field of ufology in terms of improved methodologies and instrumentation? That's a question you wanted me to ask you.
Yeah. Yes,
so there you have it.
You said it very well. I think we really need to pay attention to this because animals are remarkable witnesses. And once we start seeing the science behind it, can we make better magnetic field detectors? Can we tune our audio equipment to higher frequencies or down to infrasound? Do we have instruments that detect slight vibrations? Obviously, we have instruments to detect barometric pressure.
Yes.
All of these things should be instruments that are part of the research package, because if animals are sensing it, we can probably detect it if we have the right instrumentation.
Well, that's very interesting. And we would need to change some of our methodologies on how we do things with that.
And absolutely, yeah. If you are a field investigator, a private researcher, ask about animals. Don't just say, "Did your dog bark?" Get details. At what point did they alert you to the phenomena? Was it fear? How long? And one thing, it's important. Just because the UFO passes by does not mean the animals return to normal. Many, many cases where they are traumatized for days, if not weeks. And that's a scary thing. Something has happened to them that has...
As it does with humans.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there was a case in Belgium where there was a UFO over a field of goats. And not only did all of the goats' reproductive cycles alter dramatically, which had previously been very predictable, But the poor male goat, as they said, was unable to do his job after that.
Really?
And the poor thing, they slaughtered and ate him.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
but even the famous Delphos, Kansas picture, which I had a picture of Ronnie Johnson and his dog Snowball. Everybody talks about the Delphos, Kansas sighting and how Ronnie was affected, and the glowing ring that was left behind. But very few people mention how traumatized poor Snowball the dog was. He
I
was,
remember that case. Yeah.
yeah, he was desperate to get back in the house at night. This was his territory. Dogs are masters of their realm. He was terrified to be outside after that for quite a while. And their sheep also, their whole reproductive cycles were off. So something really, really traumatic physically affects these poor animals.
So UFO investigators need to start paying more attention to the animals.
Yes, they do.
That's an interest. Now I'm
And
going to
go back and look at your other field notes, other cases. I started re-examining some famous cases and found, what do you know? There's animal reactions in there that nobody talks about.
Interesting. Now I know that you have spent a large portion of your investigative and research life delving into the paranormal.
Yes.
Does any of this magnetoreception, does this come into play when you're involved in a paranormal investigation?
I can't tell you how many cases in retrospect I realize animals reacted to. Hauntings, unusual phenomena, it's the same thing. Animals usually know first. They react strongly, usually in fear. And so something is going on during we use EMF meters during paranormal investigations, and dogs and cats, homeowners tell us how they've been terrified. They'll run and hide. The people aren't hearing or seeing anything, but clearly their animals are. So it is part of the whole paranormal field as well.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you suppose that, and I'm just throwing this out there, I've watched a lot of paranormal investigations on YouTube and TV, and I have my favorite shows that I watch.
Mm-hmm.
And they use the EMF meters, and I know a little bit about stuff like that because I spent my entire life as an electrician and involved in high-tech electronics. So I know a little bit about field effect and that sort of stuff. And I find that quite interesting that we're using those technologies to study changes in our environment. The slightest little change in our environment tells us something's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is all kind of extremely interesting. I love high strangeness. I love investigating and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it's my life.
It is, isn't it? And we don't have to be so afraid of the paranormal. If we keep running away from it,
Mm-hmm.
we'll never find out what's going on.
That is exactly what I told myself when I started my paranormal research. If I get scared and run away anytime something happens, I'll never get anywhere. So I'm happy to say I never ran from an investigation. I've backed away slowly. But
have you had some really like mind-bending paranormal events?
Yes, which would take hours to go over them all. But yeah,
I know you've got a lot of books out there.
yes, the full-bodied apparitions, things that have happened that just defy anything you can imagine. It's held my held my attention for almost 30
yeah.
years. So if nothing was happening, I wouldn't have been involved so long.
That's always been sort of a second interest of mine,
Mm-hmm.
apart from the ufology, is to perhaps get involved in maybe a paranormal investigation or two. I too have had some experiences over the
Yeah,
years.
and there's a lot of overlap. Places like Pine Bush, New York, which is a famous UFO hotspot, in addition to their countless UFO stories, so many places are haunted in that town, and witnesses themselves. You start talking to, you start interviewing them, and not only do they have UFO sightings or encounters, they'll
Mm-hmm.
have some sort of high strangeness event, or often after a an intense UFO or encounter or experience, paranormal events will start happening in their home. So there is a link there somehow. I don't quite understand it, but
Yeah,
the evidence is there.
but we have to study it in order to understand it.
Right.
We can't keep running away from it. Now,
Exactly.
I'm looking at these pictures that you've sent us ahead of time. You have a picture here of a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what that is about?
That is the bridge over the Mississippi in Muscatine, Iowa to Illinois. And there's a case from 1981 where a lonely toll taker who worked the night shift on the Iowa side would feed the local rabbits carrots every night. So, gave him something to do. And one night he goes out to the field to feed the carrots, and the rabbits are splayed out. They're laying with their legs stretched out in front and in back, totally motionless. And he's like, oh no, they're all dead. What happened? And at this point, from the Illinois side, he sees a light. It's this oval object that's approaching the bridge in like a step-like pattern. It goes forward and up, just barely clears the top of the bridge, and then shoots off to the west. And as soon as the UFO is out of sight, the rabbits jump off and take off. So there was something that UFO was generating at that distance, across the other side of the river, that physically paralyzed these, whether they were paralyzed with fear or there was something else. And they took off, and they didn't even get their carrots. They didn't wait for that. And even Hynek investigated this case.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah, and he said that animals are often the first indication of something unusual happening. And in this case, it's one of my favorite stories, the case of the paralyzed rabbits. What does it take to do that to an animal and at such distance? I had mentioned the sometimes they go silent. There's a case in the jungles of Brazil from 1959. 3 businessmen are crocodile hunting, and suddenly a 200-foot shining disc comes over. The entire jungle goes silent. They described
Seriously.
it as an awful silence because, jungle, woods, it's like a constant symphony
Yes.
of sound.
Yeah.
And what was that
It
UFO?
just went silent.
Yes. What was that UFO generating that made every bird, insect, everything just
shut down?
Shut down.
I have one question here that has kind of bugged me for years myself. Animals. Do you think that animals have psychic abilities?
I do. I definitely do. I remember myself years ago, I had a big German Shepherd and a Husky. and they'd lay on the bed behind me as I was, sitting for hours at my computer writing. And I would just think, I think maybe I'll stop and take a walk. And they would jump up and start barking, and I was like, okay, I'm tipping them off somehow. I'm leaning back. I'm doing so. I did tests over and over again where I made sure I didn't change my motion, make any sounds, and still just the thought that I'm going to stop and we're going to take the dogs for a walk. They just knew it. And I've seen, a dog owner, you see them react in certain ways. They seem to know when somebody's coming. They were something they loved. And 10 minutes before this person arrived, they would jump up at the front window and they're wagging their tails and they're looking. They knew he was coming to the house. And if it was 1 minute, you'd say, oh, they heard the car engine coming.
Right.
But 10 minutes and 10 miles away, I don't think so.
And that's been documented time and time again. Pet owners know this.
Mm-hmm.
They know that dogs have a certain sixth sense.
Yes.
And
any
pet owner will tell you that.
And there have been cases where an animal will sit down and howl when their owner just died in the hospital.
Exactly. Yes. Well, Linda, we're coming up on the end of our program here. Gosh, there's so much, Linda, I want to talk to you about. Patricia, can you throw that list of books up there? Now, Linda, you've got 30 books on paranormal, UFO, all of it. Where are all your books at?
Go to Amazon. They're all available in print, and many of them are available as ebooks as well. I do want to point out the In the Night Sky and the Hudson Valley UFOs. Those have all been combined into my new one, the Hudson Valley UFOs, The Best Evidence, because I was starting on my fourth book and I said, this is ridiculous. I need to combine them all into one resource for everything Hudson Valley UFOs.
Okay, perfect. So I guess the final question, and I'm going to turn it into a statement. Field investigators, UFO investigators, get yourself a dog.
Yeah, I say at the end of my book, German Shepherd, Belgian Malinois, they will be the best field investigators you can hope to have.
You're right. Linda, you've got so many books out there. You're so involved in so many things. I got to have you back because I want to talk about the paranormal. I am extremely interested in ghosts and things that go bump in the night. And I know that you've been involved a long time.
Yes, be happy to. It's a date.
It's a date. Let's set that up. So everyone, I want to thank Linda Zimmermann and, of course, my program manager, Patricia Wilkinson. I am Jim Mann, your host. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.